454-day miracle. How Rishabh Pant rebuilt his brain. 5:30 a.m. at 30 December 2022 in India, when most of the country was still asleep, a speeding car tore through a dark highway. Seconds later, metal folded, glass shattered, and fire swallowed the engine. What happened next looked less like survival and more like instinct. A man crawled out of a broken window moments before the vehicle turned into an inferno. That man was Rishabh Pant, not just a cricketer, not just a celebrity, but a symbol of fearless confidence for millions. And in one violent moment, the identity he had built his life around was stripped away. Doctors examined his scans and spoke in cautious tones. Walking normally would take years, they said. Professional cricket? Unlikely. The body was shattered. But what no one could see was the more dangerous battlefield forming silently inside his head. Because when trauma strikes this deeply, it doesn't just damage muscles and bones, it fractures identity. And identity loss is where most people never recover. Today, this isn't a sports story. This is a neuroscience story. This is about how a human brain rewires itself after everything collapses. This is the logic of hope. And this is another tale from the Rewire Tales. Before the accident, Pant's brain lived on adrenaline, pressure situations, stadium noise, split-second decisions. His nervous system was trained for chaos and reward. Overnight, that world vanished. Hospital lights replaced floodlights. Silence replaced cheers. Movement turned into dependency. This sudden contrast is devastating for the brain. Neuroscience calls it an identity rupture. The future you rehearsed for years is suddenly unavailable, and the brain doesn't know where to route motivation anymore. Inside his head, the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, stayed permanently switched on. Cortisol flooded his system. Sleep became fragmented. Appetite changed. Motivation crashed. When this happens, the brain begins to conserve energy by lowering expectations. It slowly teaches itself helplessness. Not because you're weak, but because the brain is trying to protect you from more pain. This is the silent killer of comebacks. Most people never notice this phase. From the outside, recovery looks physical. On the inside, it's psychological warfare. But Rishabh Pant's recovery didn't begin with strength training or physiotherapy. It began with something so small, it hardly seemed like a beginning. A toothbrush. One morning, instead of thinking about when he would return to cricket, his brain focused on one question only. Can I do this today? That's it. No future forecasting, no 18-month projections, just the next controllable action. This approach has a name in neuroscience: micro-goal segmentation. The brain doesn't respond well to distant rewards when it's under stress. It responds to immediate, achievable wins. Every time Pant achieved something tiny, sitting up, standing briefly, brushing his teeth, his brain released a small amount of dopamine. Not enough to overwhelm, just enough to signal progress. These small dopamine releases mattered more than motivation speeches ever could. Dopamine isn't just a pleasure chemical, it's a learning signal. Each tiny win told his brain action leads to improvement. Brick by brick, a new mental architecture formed. Not heroic, not dramatic, just consistent. And consistency is how rewiring actually happens. Here's the key insight most people miss. The brain doesn't care how impressive a win looks to others. It only cares that the win is real. By stacking tiny victories, Pant was rebuilding trust with his own nervous system. And once trust returns, effort becomes possible again. But rebuilding belief wasn't enough. There was another problem: skill decay. When athletes stop performing movements, the neural pathways that control those movements begin to weaken. This is why long injuries often end careers. The body heals, but the brain forgets. Pant refused to let that happen. While his legs were immobilized, he continued playing cricket inside his mind. Neuroscientists call this visual motor rehearsal. When you vividly imagine a movement, the same neurons fire as if you were physically performing it. The brain doesn't fully distinguish between action and high-quality imagination. Every day, Pant mentally rehearsed footwork, balance, timing, shots. He imagined pressure moments, crowd noise, the feel of the bat. He kept those neural highways active. Instead of allowing the circuits to decay, he preserved them. In some cases, even strengthened them. This is why, when he finally returned to training, his movements didn't feel foreign. The body was behind. The brain was ready. He didn't wait to feel confident before thinking like a champion. He thought like a champion to rebuild confidence. Then came the most brutal phase of recovery. Pain, not soreness, real pain. pain that triggers fear, pain that makes the nervous system scream for safety. This is where most people confuse courage with denial. Pant's recovery wasn't about ignoring pain, it was about reframing it. High-performance psychology calls this top-down control. The logical brain learned to overrule the alarm system of his body. When pain screams stop, his response was quieter and colder. Assess, then proceed. Pain stopped being a command. It became feedback. This is where optimism stops being motivational talk and becomes biology. Research shows that controlled optimism boosts immune function, improves motor recovery, and prevents nervous system shutdown under prolonged stress. Rishabh Pant wasn't pretending everything was fine. He was choosing which signal deserved authority. Slowly, painfully, relentlessly, the system adapted, muscles responded, coordination returned, confidence followed. And after 454 days, something remarkable happened. He didn't just return to the field, he returned composed, clear, present, not chasing validation, not fearing re-injury, but grounded. This wasn't just a physical comeback, it was a cognitive transformation. The first rewire, micro-goal segmentation, stopped mental leakage by shrinking the future into manageable actions. The second rewire, visual motor rehearsal, preserved skill by keeping neural pathways alive through rehearsal. The third rewire, top-down control, reclaimed control by reframing pain as information instead of danger. Together, these changes didn't just heal an athlete, they rebuilt a mind capable of performing under extreme pressure. And now, here's the part that matters most. You might not be recovering from a car crash, but maybe you're recovering from burnout, from failure, from a version of yourself that no longer exists. The brain doesn't care about the source of trauma. It responds to patterns. The same principles apply. Start smaller than your ego wants. One win today, one controlled rehearsal tonight, one conscious decision to treat discomfort as data, not destiny. That's how rewires begin. Quietly, consistently, invisibly. Rishabh Pant's story proves something powerful. Your current wreckage is not your final form. The brain you have today is not the brain you're stuck with. Plasticity is real. Change is trainable. So here's the question you need to answer honestly. What is the smallest win you can secure today that proves to your brain that progress is possible? Write it down, act on it. And if stories like this help you rebuild focus, resilience, and mental clarity, subscribe to the Rewire Tales, because your story isn't over. It's just waiting for its next rewire.